All right, we're back here on the Dan Mullen Coaches Show, live from Parkway Tavern, 215 at Flamingo. These raffle prizes going fast. Game-worn helmets, the Modelo UNLV crossover mirror giveaway, T-shirts, hats, visors, tickets to games. Come on out. Coaches Show Thursday nights, weeks where there's UNLV games. So don't come out next week. Bye week next weekend, so we will not be here unless you want to come hang out at this lovely Parkway location anyway. But come on out every Thursday where there is a UNLV game on the Saturday, 7 to 8 here, Parkway Tavern, 215 and Flamingo. Matt Neverett along with Caleb Herring and UNLV head coach Dan Mullen. And we're talking a little bit about the reigning, newly announced Mountain West Defensive Player of the Week in Amaris Brown. Last week he had his second interception. UNLV with 5 picks on the year, second in all of the NCAA. Brown and LaTerrence Welch are each tied for the NCAA lead with 2 picks each. Brown also tacking on 3 tackles for loss, a pair of sacks in the win against Sam Houston, and our very own Steve Cofield got a chance to catch up with him earlier in the week, talking about his experience at USF in their game last week where they demolished Boise State, how Coach Mullen recruited him here to UNLV, and his thoughts on his position coach, Akeem Davis. Here's Amaris Brown with Steve Cofield.
I actually wasn't surprised. I played with most of them guys on that team. We done been, 2 years back to back. We played out of Alabama and came up short, just by, in the last couple of minutes or whatever. So I wasn't surprised by any chance. I knew it was possible, But, coming from South Florida, coming here, I don't look at it as, no regret or anything like that. I look at it as a blessing. Everything, happened for a reason. And, God wanted me to be here at UNLV instead of South Florida for some reason. And, I'm just here to, fill in that spot.
You go in the portal, Mullen talks to you personally, right? Mm-hmm. What's the pitch?
Honestly, it really wasn't no pitch. Honestly, he knew the ability I had. He knew the experience that I had. And, vice versa, I knew the experience he had, as far as in the SEC and winning national championships. I've had family members who I know played for him, back then a couple years ago. So, just all of that connected into one played a big role into why I came here to UNLV.
You had no hook to Akeem Davis before this?
Nothing at all. Not until my visit here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was he like on the visit, and what's he like as a coach during the games especially?
Yeah. Honestly, he's been since my visit in December or January, whenever that was, till now, he's been the same guy. He always keep it straightforward. He's not going to lie to you, and I feel like the biggest thing for me about him is he's big on faith. He's not pushing it on us, trying to force it on us or anything like that. But, he does mention it. He does bring it up, how important it is to just, keep your faith in God and just, leave it to God and he going to handle it, And as far as the sideline during the games, like I said, he the same guy that he is at practice, energetic, yelling, probably the loudest person out there. He going to get on you. He going to make it, making sure you're doing your job the right way and everything like that. But, yeah, man, I love Coach Davis.
You were probably coming off the field after the pick 6, and you didn't see this, but he starts running down the sidelines. He's like, that's who we are. That's who we are. And then he and Burfict, jump in the air to chest bump. And I'm like, oh, my God, the thud between those two guys?
Yeah.
It's pretty colossal.
I haven't seen that. I know it's probably crazy, though. Burfict is a big guy.
And Coach Amaris Brown obviously producing some early results for you and your coaching staff here through the first 2 weeks. Always interested to talk to coaches about how and when they select guys to maybe say, hey, the nickelback role could be a perfect fit for you, your size, your speed, your physicality. What was it that stood out to you right away about Amaris Brown that led you to believe he'd be a great fit at that position in this defense?
Well, one of the things you look at, especially if you're going to play the nickel, you got to have corner cover skills and you got to have safety physicality. So he's a guy that is a physical player, has the size, has the physical style to his game, but played a lot of corner at South Florida. So had that background and experience. So he had that crossover mentality. That's the guy that you're going to create the mismatches with. So you got to be a unique player, and he has that skill set. And, and his energy, his demeanor every day has been unbelievable. Like his leadership. He'll be a game captain for us this week in this week's game.
Amaris Brown, the captain, back-to-back weeks with an interception, the reigning Mountain West Defensive Player of the Week. Here's hoping that he adds a third interception, or third game in a row with an interception.
Let's
hopefully, yeah, multiple. Why not just the one? Well, coming up, we're going to get really deep in the trenches. No, not the offensive and defensive line. We've got a former Rebel quarterback in Caleb Herring. We have an offensive whiz in Dan Mullen. We're going to get really technical and talk about some of Caleb's favorite route concepts and some of the real high-level things that he's liked about this UNLV offense in the early stages of the year. Buckle up. Put on your school caps. We're going back to the classroom with Caleb Herring and Dan Mullen. Coming up next, you're listening to the Dan Mullen Coaches Show here on the UNLV Sports Network from Learfield. The Dan Mullen Coaches Show. We're here live at Parkway Tavern, 215 in Flamingo. We're on 12:30 The Game on the radio side this week. with the Las Vegas Aces taking on the Minnesota Lynx at T-Mobile Arena right now as we speak. We're joined, as always, by the namesake of the show, head football coach for UNLV, Dan Mullen. 21 winners last weekend over Sam Houston. Looking ahead to the matchup, a highly contested matchup between UCLA and UNLV this Saturday. Allegiant Stadium, 5 o'clock kickoff. UNLVtickets.com for tickets and more info. Come sell out Allegiant as the Rebels try to make it 3 straight to start the 2025 season. Well, Coach, throughout these first couple of weeks, a lot of folks have been curious about what this offense was going to look like under yourself, offensive coordinator Corey Dennis, and the quarterback combination. A lot of the new pieces involved on the skill side as well, but now we've started to see an identity start to form through 2 games, and Caleb and I had talked throughout the last 2 weeks about some of his favorite parts, and I don't know that I've seen Caleb react in our almost 2 seasons of doing games together like he did on D'Angelo Irvin's touchdown catch on the far corner of the end zone. Caleb, walk us through what you saw on that route concept and why you liked it so much.
Well, I liked it because it exemplified a few things. One, good quarterback play. I think that was one of the plays where Calandra actually comes up and makes an adjustment at the line of scrimmage. Not sure exactly what he barked out, but it was pretty clear coming out of that timeout, he liked the look he had. Yeah. He got to what is my favorite route concept to throw out of 3x1. We had a name for it back when I played. We just called it Dino Y-Core.
Okay.
Trey left Dino Y-Core. That would have been what we would have called the play. But it put one of the best routes versus man coverage on display. And for me, it was number 3 running a corner against man coverage. And D'Angelo Irvin timed it up perfect, worked his release well enough in the short field. The ball was on the money, on time, right in the corner of the end zone. Couldn't draw it up any better. But like I said, quarterback getting to the call, receivers executing the call, and then one of my favorite man beaters of all time, all happened on one play. That was what I saw. Yeah. From your perspective on the sideline, how'd you see it?
Yeah, it's really the same thing. I think we did. I'm not going to go through what we call it, but
Dino Y-Core for anyone listening.
There we go. Yeah. And but we did. We had a play call. We saw the man coverage. Anthony checked us into that play. It was 3rd and goal, so it was a big play. We needed to come away with points in the red zone. 3rd and goal. I think it was coming off a penalty.
Right.
There was a penalty. There was a
right.
penalty the play before on them. And so I think they came out. We had a play called. They came out with a completely different look. Anthony does a nice job changing the play, get us into that protection, get us into that pass route. You got the route concept right. And the key to the route, D'Angelo Irvin did a great job. A lot of the guys that run that route, they want to go too quick to the corner. You really got to sell the vertical. And he did a great job pushing his guy vertical deep enough to then get the foot in the ground, slam it to the corner. And Anthony did a great job throwing it to that back pylon where you just saw. I mean, it was a fingertip catch. He caught it. It's him or nobody. He catches it, gets the foot down, and the touchdown. And it is great, actually. That's where you want to come. As you talk about what's the personality of our offense, we're still learning. We're still figuring it all out, if you will, of how guys perform in games. But you're starting to see what our offense is going to be. We're still learning. Everyone's learning each other. But I think it's the trust that we have in the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks know they have that flexibility, that opportunity to get us into certain play calls at certain times. And we took advantage of it in that situation.
I think it also goes to the relationship. And all the great offenses, there's always a good relationship between the quarterback and the coordinator. And with that, there's a certain amount of trust and a certain amount of, I guess, finish my sentence. When I call something, you know what I'm thinking.
It's the Avatar thing, right?
Yeah.
In the movie Avatar,
right? Yeah,
and you guys.
We're gonna have dragons out here next,
right?
What does it feel like for you? Your coordinator experience now, kind of stepping back as the head coach, also with the new communication system that wasn't around the last time you were an offensive coordinator.
I think they're happy. I don't get to talk to the quarterbacks. Corey talks to the quarterbacks. I think that's probably good.
That's our job to talk to you.
Yeah, he gets to talk to the quarterbacks. But no, I think it is. You got into it at halftime. I think it is that trust and that communication and understanding what we're trying to accomplish, right? And when quarterbacks come off the field, I always ask, my number one question is why? Hey, why'd you do that? They're like, what should I have done? I said, well, what should you have done is irrelevant. I want to know, right, what you should have done is what I think. Why did you do what you did? Because we want to get that deal. And so I think all of our quarterbacks and the communication, it's whether it with Anthony and Alex Orji and, being locked in and what's going on, what we're seeing in the course of a game with Corey upstairs. And now in now technology, you have the video on the sideline. That's a new deal for me. I never had that part. The talking to quarterbacks, I don't know. Everybody used to watch me. Sometimes I'd talk. I just yell from the sidelines and scream. So, like, Coach, you've always had that Coach, the quarterback communication. You just screaming from the sidelines. Now you have that aspect of it, which is a pretty unique deal. And so the trust, as you said, the trust, the communication, getting everybody on the same page, right? Of why did you do that? Hey, I got to that play, as you said, Coach, because it's man coverage. We're on the goal line. It's 3rd and 5. 3rd and goal from the 5. I got man coverage on number 3. I want to throw the corner route to him. Good. Call it. Then if you explain things that way, I'll let guys check any play they want. You can call out the whole game if you want. Like, I just want to know your whys, and that is the most important thing in the trust that you go build between coach and quarterback.
Coming up, we'll have our final segment of the Dan Mullen Coaches Show. We've got our final couple of raffle prize giveaways for our local audience here at Parkway Tavern, 215 in Flamingo. And we're going to get you set for kickoff, UNLV and UCLA this Saturday, 5 o'clock Pacific at Allegiant Stadium, UNLVtickets.com to come on out and join us in person. We'll close up shop next. Final segment coming up next on the Dan Mullen Coaches Show. You're listening to the UNLV Sports Network from Learfield. Wrapping things up, final segment here of the Dan Mullen Coaches Show. UNLV getting set to take on UCLA this Saturday, 5 o'clock Pacific kickoff at Allegiant Stadium, UNLVtickets.com. If you haven't already purchased your tickets, our Ted Weens pregame show starts an hour before kickoff at 4 on the Varsity Network app and the ESPN Las Vegas radio network. Well, UNLV taking on UCLA. Interesting matchup here between Mountain West and Big Ten. UCLA coming off of a loss, 43-10 in their opener against Utah. Really stout Utah team overall. This UCLA team led by second-year head coach Deshaun Foster, former All-American running back as a UCLA Bruin. And a lot of headlines, we'll say, in the offseason made by their acquisition of Nico Iamaleava.
There you go.
There we
got it.
We're practicing.
I learned that one on
TV
TV last year. I had that down week 1.
There you go.
You're doing college football final like Matt Berry, and Joey and the guys at ESPN. You had to get that one down pretty quick. So I got Nico's name down.
I was excited to ask you about it because, it's not a guy that you had called a game of his per se while you were at ESPN, but you had to talk about him plenty. This was a Tennessee team that he led last year that made it all the way to the CFP, and he was really good as a freshman starting his first games. But when you get to look at Nico last year on TV from afar, what did you think? Well,
you see the talent he has, right? And the talking to the people, I've never got to see him live in person. You get to see him on TV. Throws a tremendous arm talent. Throws a great deep ball, right? And you got to see it. You got to see it a lot last year at Tennessee. If you watch their offense, run, and they're going to launch that bad boy down the field. He throws a pretty deep ball. The thing I think that's interesting with Nico though is his size, 6'6", right? Has a big build, but then you watch his athleticism is deceiving. He's a better athlete than you think. And you watch him in that Ohio State playoff game, the tough, he's not afraid to be physical, right? So here he is, this big guy. You think, he's a pocket passer, and he has all this arm talent. But then you watch him move, and he's a better athlete, and he's more physical with the ball in his hand than you think. So it brings a tough challenge for our guys.
And he was the leading rusher last week as well for UCLA. So
there you go. That's why
it came to the forefront right off the bat. For you and your coaching staff, now with 2 games full of tape on yourself, you've got 1 game of tape on your opponent. Where do you strike?
They got to see twice as much of us as we did.
But where do you strike the balance as a staff as far as the opponent? Obviously, you want to scout and look ahead to what they may do. But how much self-scouting do you do after 2 weeks of game tape?
Well, you're always doing it. You're looking at what you do well, what you did poorly, how people attacked us, where our deficiencies were, who's playing well. It's all new players for us. Are we putting guys in position to be successful? I think all that's important. And so you take all of those things, combine all of that together. The next big thing that you look at is the team you're playing. And obviously UCLA, not the result they wanted last week, but I go back to us in week 1. We found a way to win. We weren't playing Utah, but thankfully, we found a way to win. Utah's an excellent football team. They get a lot of talent.
Top 25 as of the other day.
Yeah, and physicality. They're a physical football team. And so, they're going to come out of that game kind of like us in week 1 saying, hey, we didn't play our best, but we're going to make a huge jump. Now, they, like you said, Nico's a new quarterback for them. A lot of new faces on their roster, a lot of new faces on the defense. They had a bunch of guys drafted into the NFL last year. So, they're kind of finding their way around, trying to make that big jump from week 1 to week 2 that I felt we made. Now what we got to do, and I'm on our guys, we got to make as big a jump from 1 to 2. We got to make that same big jump from 2 to 3 to go, compete against a talented Big Ten team.
Talented Big Ten team. What you can see on the film, playmakers, Anthony Woods at running back, some explosive guys on the edges for Nico to throw it to and deal it to.
A lot of speed.
A lot of shifts and motions on the offensive side. We talked about the defensive communication and how it improved from week 0 to week 1. How important is it going to be with this style of offense that the Bruins bring?
Well, it's going to be huge. You got to, they're going to be big physical up front. They got game breakers all over the field. And, so you got to be disciplined. If you are not in your gap, if you are not in your coverage leverage, they're going to expose you and have the opportunity to make a big play. And, when you're in these games, you want to make them earn it. Everybody, you want to make people earn their way down the field. We don't want to give the explosion. You saw it last week when we made them earn it. Sam Houston couldn't do anything. We gave them the easy ones with the mistakes. They got easy touchdowns. So we want to make them have to earn it all the way down the field defensively. And, and then we got the same thing for them on the other side of the ball. They had some miscommunications last week against Utah. I'm sure they want to get cleaned up. You can't sit there and say, hey, okay, we expect them to make mistakes again. We got to go execute. Don't expect them to make the mistakes. We got to go execute and perform.
Coach, we got about a minute left. Last question for you. What is the number one area that you talked about wanting to make that same jump from week 1 to week 2, week 2 to week 3? What is the one area that you think your team needs to make the biggest jump in this week to come out with a victory?
I think number of people at Allegiant Stadium on Saturday from our Rebel fans making all the noise, creating home field environment for us. We had an unbelievable crowd in week 1. I want to be twice as good in our second home game as we were in our first home game, right? So I think what were we at, 25,000?
Just about.
So we got to double down. Let's get at least 50,000, right? We're in Vegas, double down. We're going to double down. We need 50,000 Rebel fans there screaming, making noise for us, creating the environment. We're going to do we'll put on a better show. We want the crowd there, the excitement, the energy. I want everything. I want everybody, this team, to come up and take another huge step forward for the fans. The fans come out, support their team. Everybody buy in. Everybody enjoy it. Everybody come enjoy the show. And everybody here in the city of Las Vegas to get this win. It's not just our team. It's not just UNLV. It's the whole city of Las Vegas we're going to try to get this win for on Saturday.
Well, there he is, everybody. Head coach Dan Mullen as the Rebels get set to take on UCLA. It'll be a 5 o'clock kickoff at Allegiant Stadium, UNLVtickets.com. For Caleb Herring, for Steve Cofield, for Jared Justice and Griffin Kemp, I'm Matt Everett saying thanks so much for tuning in. Rebels, Bruins, Saturday, Allegiant Stadium. Be there, UNLVtickets.com, or check us out on ESPN Las Vegas. We appreciate you tuning in, and until Saturday, so long.